What's up, everybody? Welcome to Don't Give Up with Jacob. Today, I have a special guest joining me on my show. Not only that, but she is also a registered physiologist and the founder of Thrive Physiology Health Team with nearly a decade of experience supporting children, adults, and families. So please give a warm welcome to Christal Castagnozzi.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. My name is Crystal. It's really nice to meet everyone.
Welcome to my show, Crystal. I'm so glad that you're here so I could ask you lots of questions about your life.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So I'm going to ask you if you can tell my audience what you do in your everyday work life and also tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to do this type of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, I work with children, adolescents, and adults. I am a clinical and school psychologist, and so I do therapy. So, I work with lots of different individuals and I help support them as they navigate life due to different reasons for everyone. And then I also do assessments. So a part of my job is actually exploring and making diagnoses. And so sometimes I do ADHD assessments, sometimes I do autism assessments, sometimes it's autism and ADHD assessments, psychoeducational assessments, and mental health assessments. So lots of different assessments. And really, in that part of my job, it's for me to understand the individual so we can really understand their experience and then make a plan to move forward with either a diagnosis or not. And a little bit about me aside from that, I'm also a mom. And so I have a neurodivergent kiddo myself. And so I have that experience. And then I have two other kiddos and balancing that life. I have some pets as well. And so I enjoy outdoor time and lots of that fun stuff. And I myself actually am neurodivergent as well. I didn't know during my adolescence or young days, but in my young adulthood years after I had my first child, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And it really helped me understand a little bit about why I struggled in certain ways. And actually, last year, it hasn't been a full year just yet, but last year I was diagnosed with autism as well. And so that was another missing puzzle piece that really helped me understand myself. And to backtrack to one of your earlier questions about why I do what I do, or really what led me on my journey, is my own lived experience. I definitely didn't wake up in my 20s or 30s with ADHD or autism. It was always there. It just wasn't seen by others until later on in life. And so those difficulties were there, and I really did struggle. And I think in high school, I felt very alone and misunderstood. And I went through a very, very hard time. Thankfully, I did work with my own therapist who really helped me and helped me realize that I shouldn't give up, Jacob. That's why I love your message. They helped me realize not to give up and to really keep swimming. And that inspired me. That help that I received really inspired me and wanted me to help support others in whichever way I could. And so after high school, I went to university and then I did my master's, and then I'm actually still completing my doctorate. But I've been in school for a very, very long time, and it hasn't been easy. There definitely has been little bumps and stumps along the way, but I do think that that message about not giving up has really helped me along the way.
Wow, that really sounds like a lot. I also got diagnosed with autism when I first moved to a new state, and back then I didn't know what was going on. And at first I was diagnosed as verbally delayed, and when I first moved to a new state, that's when I got diagnosed with autism, and that's when things really started to make sense the way I was living.
Yeah. And I think that is often the story for us neurodivergent folks, right? We don't know, and then once we understand ourselves, it really does help. At least for me and for many of my clients, and it sounds like you as well. Understanding ourselves really helps for us to be able to move forward and make sense of our experiences.
Yeah, that's right. I'm very glad that I got diagnosed with autism because it really helps me understand what's going on with my everyday life and why I'm acting in a certain way that other people don't. And sometimes it does get hard for me, but that's okay. It's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, and we have good days and off days. And I think understanding the why, right? It really helps us to take it off of our backs. I don't know about you, but I think before I knew that I was autistic and had ADHD, I felt like I was the problem, right? And something was wrong with me, and maybe it was my personality, or maybe I just wasn't good enough in certain ways. But being able to understand that that's just how my brain works has really been able to give me compassion for myself and to help myself treat myself better, which is really important for mental health, right?
Yeah, I think I agree. And speaking of having a label to help yourself know if you have a neurodiversity, I want to ask you, what are some ways a certain label can help people understand what they are going through in their everyday lives?
Yes. So I think a label, it's not always needed, right? I think it doesn't change anything about us. Sometimes it can be very scary, and I do understand that part of it. For a lot of individuals, they might be afraid. I think when we look at systems, right, with schools specifically, oftentimes in order for kids and adolescents to receive supports, we have to really understand if there is a diagnosis there, because that's really how we base a lot of our supports in the medical system as well, right? Unless we have a comprehensive assessment, someone may see some of the symptoms and not really understand the experience. So I think in that regard, it is also really important to have an assessment so that we can just have a word that describes a little bit about us, right? And we're not all the same, right? I think within neurodiversity, there is a lot of difference. And I love saying, you meet one ADHD person, it's literally just one ADHD person, or you meet an autistic individual, it's just one autistic individual. We're all so unique and so different. And so I don't like for us to put ourselves in this box, but having a shared term really does allow for that greater understanding, right? And I think I do a lot of assessments with lots of different people, and they come and they're just stuck, and it's everything's in their mind is really just jumbled and overwhelmed, and they don't know what's going on. And oftentimes we do use something called the DSM-5, and a lot of overlap in there between the varying different concerns and difficulties. And so being able to do a very thorough assessment and to be able to understand the root is really important so people don't get the wrong label too, because that happens sometimes. And I think, for example, if we are neurodivergent and we struggle with burnout, right, we have to rest. We have to relax our brains. And if we don't know that, some people might actually think that maybe it's depression, right? And then with depression, the way that we often treat depression is we're trying to get people to go out and do things. But for a neurodivergent brain, that might not actually be helpful. So I think understanding is a really important piece for us to be able to support the person as a system. Also, for us to be able to base treatment in a way that it will be as helpful as possible, because we're all not the same. But then also for ourselves to understand ourselves and to be able to give ourselves that compassion, that grace, and to really understand that experience and feel less alone in it.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a lot. It's very good to know that neurodiversity is a thing because I really feel like everyone in this world has something that makes them unique, even if they have a neurodiversity or not. That's what makes the world unique because if we were all the same, then life really would be boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And, I think sometimes it may be tricky to be neurodivergent, absolutely, but I do think that with it comes a lot of strength as well, right? And so it really is about understanding what are our individual strengths so that we can help ourselves do better in those areas and support those areas that maybe are a little bit trickier for us.